Okay, we are live after a very long time. When was the last time we did? It must be like July or something, isn't it?
Guess so. Yeah, it was. Yeah, before the summer holidays.
Yeah, so I feel a bit rusty. Not doing any podcasting since then. Uh, yeah, welcome to
Sure, you'll get
everyone.
soon get up to speed.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to be back. Uh, and today we're going to talk about metal. So we kind of thinking to go into like a little bit more to things that we have, you know, all those things that kind of make sense on starting this ministry. Is it like how metal is an appropriate music of worship, first of all, and then someone can be. It's like absolutely compatible to be a Christian and a metalhead. Those things that don't contradict each other. Uh, let me try. I think we look better like this. Yeah, this is kind of. And as always, we haven't scripted anything. We haven't got a clue where this is gonna go. We kind of jump into it, and we kind of take it as it comes. Uh, yeah, I mean, well, what your take? The thing is, Roger, you're not a metalhead.
And
Like in
it depends how broad your definition. I'm an old rocker,
yeah.
so and I dabble with a bit of metal. I guess I'm not a true metalhead. That's more of a recent genre defined, but it depends if you want boundaries on your music, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess like a lot of times if you're in rock and hard rock, like kind of you dipping into heavy metal and power metal, like the lighter forms of metal, isn't it? Like
Well, I mean, when I was a youth, when metal was invented, that's all we had.
yeah,
Sabbath,
Sabbath.
Priest, Iron Maiden. That was metal.
Yeah.
That was it.
And
There was blurring of the lines at the top end of heavy rock, and depends on who you asked. But
heavy metal wasn't even a term back then, isn't it? It's like they were using
no,
hard rock, and I mean Motorhead until the end. They like Lemmy was adamant they play rock and roll.
yeah,
I mean the guy created whole genres of metal, and I'm playing rock and roll. Like,
he just played rock and roll a little bit faster and louder than everybody else. I
like
mean,
yeah. I mean he was
but
the main influence on thrash, isn't it? Like he played thrash before. I mean a lot of the
yeah,
early thrash metal bands like they cited Motorhead as one of the main influences. So I say the speed of the guitars and yeah. Uh, so do you want to as a
I,
non-stringed metalhead?
I don't.
Uh,
I get the idea of metal. I mean, as I see it, I mean, there's very little distinction in attitude from the sort of rock community and the metal community. It's they're real, they're community, family centered in attitude to each other. If you stood in the front of a stage with a lot of guys playing guitars, everyone around you is your friend. It
yeah,
doesn't matter if you've never met them before. Um, Not necessarily the same in other walks of life or other genres, I guess. There's a rebellious streak, the fashion, for want of a better word, leather, denim, t-shirts, all the rest of it. It sticks out. It's not according to the norms of society, um, and a lot like Christianity in all those respects. I think I saw a quote from someone that said, if you're a metalhead and a Christian, you're going to be despised by everybody.
Yeah.
Basically, you're not ticking anyone's boxes. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I think the the pure theological answer, to the question, can a metalhead be a Christian, is, well, anyone can be a Christian. It's a matter of faith in Jesus, following Jesus. That's not necessarily the attitude you'd get in all churches, but yeah, that goes down to the sort of bias and the despising.
Yeah, I think what you said is kind of, but you kind of, I mean, we kind of exist on on the verges of two different, I can say, subcultures. From one
Yeah,
side,
I
we
think.
kind of we exist within inside churches. That's kind of like an oddity. Then, I mean, you go to, I mean, I don't know what other people's go. Like sometimes, we end up going in a Sunday service with a church appropriate metal T-shirt. you know. Uh, but yeah, and then like you exist on the within the metal community, which like you go there as a follower of Jesus, as a Christian. It's kind of like, uh,
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of, for the last, I don't know, 40, 50, or however long, how long's metal been going? 40 years?
50,
50 years?
50.
I mean, yeah, it depends. Well, there you go. Old rocker, metalhead. What's the
Yeah, so
difference?
we're looking about like
Um,
between 50 and 55 years around.
yeah, unless you count the Kinks. But um, or the Beatles, Helter Skelter, first metal song. Discuss. But
So we're gonna have an argument which one was the first metal band, Black
have
Sabbath or
you
Deep
heard John
Purple,
Lennon singing that
or,
thing?
or Deep Purple.
But yeah, I mean, for certainly since Sabbath came out with their sort of hammer horror image, the church and the polite people have had nothing good to say about it as a genre. The industry's played into that with all the pseudo demonic imagery and such like. I think
I think with all the
the fact
satanic.
that the church has been outspoken and tried to overall metal gigs and rock music generally, and they've burnt records. Even burnt the Beatles records, for goodness
The
sake.
Beatles.
Um,
There's because they had long hair or something like this, I think.
yeah, who knows? It interfered with their idea of polite society, I think. But then, the reaction against that is to hate Christians because
Yeah.
it's Christians making all the fuss. No
I mean,
one
to
else
be honest,
cares.
like especially the Beatles, they have. I mean, the Beatles, they have I mean, they. It's not that they didn't. How to put it? Like they kind of. A lot of, I mean, some of the statements they were like really like, I mean, John Lennon like saying like the Beatles are more popular than Jesus Christ. It's like, you have a serious. I mean, you can love your music, but the guy had a serious gut syndrome.
Yeah, but I mean, he also had a serious sense of humour, and he was probably right. I mean, numerically.
I mean, now yes, but like back then, I don't think so. Like, especially
Well,
in the States.
maybe he was a prophet. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, it was tongue in cheek. I mean, that was. I don't think John Lennon gave a press conference where he didn't make some sort of wisecrack, and it was good publicity, wasn't it? I mean, much as we look at metal and rock music and whatever as a cultural thing, it's also it's fundamentally built around an entertainment product.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of marketing and
which can
hype
imagine
around it.
a lot of Sunday services, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's an awful lot of similarities,
I mean, I have seen like things like but that happens mostly in the States. I haven't seen anything
Yeah,
similar here, but like the person I mean, they do it like in youth groups, like the person who would bring more friends within the year that said they're gonna get like a PlayStation 5 or something like. I
Yeah.
mean, they like drawing lots for anything from like uh, expensive cars to M16s and AK-47, like, like yeah. Yeah, a couple of comments. That's from. I mean, it's been like Salvation Army Zillingham, so I guess probably it's Martin, a pastor there. And one's like counterculture is possibly a definition of the Jesus paradox. If the heavy metal culture is counterculture of today, Jesus would be there. The churches and establishments they've been trying to control music since time began. So you should have heard what they said about Bach. I don't know what they said. I know what they were saying about Wagner, and
Yeah, I mean, probably before even my time, but
I mean Bach was like even it was before even your time.
yeah. But yeah, it is that sort of counterculture thing, and I guess there's a confusion between Christianity and following Jesus and normal society, and
Yeah.
it's the sort of the powerful elites using religion to control the masses
Mm.
has got in the way of what is actually the true Christian message.
Yeah, and that creates a lot of
Um,
tension to us. Is that, like not us too, like the people that we kinda Christian we kinda like in on the other side that we're getting bombarded with arguments that someone else created it, and it's
yeah,
kind of like okay, like we're not all of us are like this, you know, like, we're not all homophobic and and racist, and like
don't spoil the secret.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing you read is absolutely right. If Jesus was alive today, notwithstanding the long hair and the beard, you know, it'd be there in the mosh pit. Because that's where people are,
yeah. I think he would
and
enjoy a good mosh
you
pit.
know, he throughout his life he didn't hang around with the nice people and the powerful people and the church leaders of the
Mm.
day and whatever. He hung around with the ordinary people,
Yeah,
and particularly with the outcasts and the rejected. You know,
yeah. I mean, a vision I have. It's like it's not a vision I saw. It's just like a picture I have in my mind. It's a mental picture about heaven, and it's kind of like Jesus, like in the middle, like I don't know, sitting there somewhere, then like a massive mosh pit, like all like Christian metal is for all the ages, just like moshing around Jesus. It's like,
but actually, yeah, I mean, it's a similar feeling. Sort of really getting into worship and being in the middle of a concert with
hmm,
the music takes you to a different place and
yeah.
everyone's of one mind and such like. There is a lot of. I don't see any problem with a mosh pit in heaven. Why not?
Yeah.
You
I mean, to
know.
be honest, I had a very strong spiritual experience in a mosh pit, and it was actually um, it was playing at the gates was play they were playing. It was like a Bloodstock, the Bloodstock festival, and at the gates. I'm not even into the gates. I don't listen to them, but it was you know the show was happening at that time, so I was off. I was just like yeah, let's join the people there. Yeah, I had that like very really like really this strong sense of community, and it was like an actual spiritual experience. I mean, to be honest, at that point, I was going through quite a lot, so it kind of uh, I had like this like I was feeling like the spirit talking to me and like kind of give me guidance about everything, and at that time still we didn't have this the metal sense at that point yet, so So a lot of it was about this, and yeah, and it's kind of to be honest, if you think about it, like if you, I wrote a blog about it, but it's kind of if you think like the what's happening, the most of the pit. I mean, it is aggressive. I mean, it's like could say someone could say it's quite violent, and but it's controlled. So there's a massive amount of control. So nothing happen. Like things don't happen. They happen randomly, but within a set. So the way I can describe it's like what the idea of holy chaos, of like a chaos controlled by the Holy Spirit. It's something. The Mospit is something similar. It's like a chaotic environment that everything goes, but at the same time there is an awareness of God, what's going on. So there's no. I mean, on all my years, I've never seen someone falling and stayed down. So
Yeah.
someone will. I mean, it was a. Last time was we did a wall of death. So for the people that don't know what the wall of death is, it's like when a metal gig, the people split in 2 or 3 parts. So and they open, and then at some point they're just running to each other. They're like falling to one falls to the other, but they're in the middle because of 3 sides. They're in the middle. There was a gap where everything, where all the people met. So they was create a gap, and it happened to be at that gap. So I just went like with another one, with another guy who just went like straight like down to the floor because there was nowhere to bounce basically. So it doesn't. He I landed down and he landed on me. Uh, so it's like, and but that kind of so when the wall of death happens, then straight away you have a pit. So everyone bounced each other, then a pit's open. But like before everything happens, like the people that were next to us just grabs us. I
Yeah.
mean, no one will like get like poor you. Just they grab you and they throw you back in the pit. Right? It's like if you want to be there, you have to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've stood on the edge of a lot of pits in my time. Wearing glasses, I've never sort of thrown myself into it because glasses cost too much.
You don't need glasses.
Yeah, but I'm aware of them and if I'm carrying them, even.
Yeah.
But I've seen the mechanics, and it's actually it's a beautiful thing to behold from the
Yeah.
side. As you say, it's organised chaos, every complete free for all. But if someone goes down, someone will lift them back up again,
Yeah.
and there is a sort of mutual preservation
Yeah.
code,
Yeah.
I guess.
That's to make clear. That's a metal mospit. Punk mospits are completely different story.
Well,
Punk.
that's the other thing, of course. Having been sort of teenager in the 70s, I sort of cut my teeth on the whole punk thing. So,
Yeah. Punk
yeah,
mospits are.
being on the receiving end of that, wasn't wearing glasses
Yeah.
then.
Punk mospits are. Yeah. They're a completely different story. Like they can be really violent on purpose. But
Yeah, a bit more nihilistic. But,
yeah. Oh, that's a different story. Uh. Yeah, and yeah, he has that like that idea of like I don't know, always invite. What I'm saying, I kind of see it as a that like very strong sense of community and belonging, and we are all the same. And it was like a meme. I think I shared it on the page a few times that said like, "Is the Mospit the only place that race, religion, sexual orientation, gender doesn't matter?"
I, I think the sort of rock metal scene, yeah, it's. I mean, well, 3 weeks ago, I was up in Wolverhampton at a sort of 2-day event. Went on my own,
Mm.
met loads of people never met before, chatted and all that. But looking around the crowd, there were people who looked pretty ordinary. There were people with extreme ink and piercings. There was a guy in drag. There were kids, and everyone was just, in there together, enjoying the music.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there were 18 bands, and the bands were sort of spending the time between the sets in the in with the fans, talking to the fans, and
yeah,
it was just a sort of 2-day meet and greet basically and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And it was everyone's just community, and it didn't matter where you were from, you know, north, south. Didn't matter whether you were cross-dressing, male, female,
Mm.
gay, straight, whatever. Everyone just
Yeah.
got on, you
It's
know.
very important. I try to. His name now completely skips my mind. He was oh, come on. He was the singer of Gorgoroth. So it's a kind of. I mean, the guy has an obsession with Satan. He's not a Satanist, but he kind of has an obsession with Satan.
Hmm.
But anyway, I don't know how long ago, might be a couple of years, he came. He came out as gay. Um, and I was watching an interview of his, and he was saying like the acceptance I found like within the metal community,
Hmm.
I was amazing. And I mean, he was getting messages from young, metal teenagers that they were gay, secretly gay from their families, and the comfort that they have found on him coming out.
Hmm.
I mean, because I was quite like skeptical how that got accepted, because the black metal scene is very weird. This, yeah, you have Nazis in there. You have like so you have a lot of like fascism, like fascist bands, so which by definition they're homophobic and like.
Yeah.
So
But
it was
then,
quite interesting, and so, but yeah, I was pleasantly surprised that he got like there was like he was met like with a lot of acceptance and like,
but I guess, I mean, having said all that, and yeah, it's sort of great community and very transparent, there could well be people watching thinking, well, that's not like any church I've ever been to.
yeah,
And I guess the point we're trying to make just by doing this is don't judge Jesus by the church necessarily. You know,
yeah,
there are churches that aren't homophobic, stuck up, do-gooding, whatever. They're just people.
yeah, yeah.
And in fact, most people who go to church are just people at the end of the
I
day.
think
Um,
yeah, something I've seen like a lot of the things that the church been judged. It's the thing is it's not a Christian thing, so it's not a religious thing.
no, it's a
Seeing
people
this
thing.
exactly the same behaviors to communists, to atheists, I think that's in one way I think the church gets the amp from one side. I think because it's like we always like to point someone else's fault as a bigger so we can hide ours. So people like look at this, like so you don't look at me, like look at what they do. So it's exactly what Jesus was saying, like take the plank out of your eye first before you take the splinter of your brother's eye. And I think at the same time, I think it kind of happens because in a different like level of consciousness, like because the church should have been different.
Yeah.
So
I think
so
the
basically,
problem
the
is that,
church bought into the world's attitude, which said this
yeah,
should have been, they should be giving the example where there's no overruling leaders, there's no hard shepherding, there's no hypocrisy. Yeah, I mean, you cannot be hypocrite. Like it's not really like a hard thing not to be a hypocrite. It's not like it's not like smoking. Like I can't quit smoking. It's like you can make a decision in your life not to be a hypocrite and work on that. It's not gonna happen overnight, but you can make a conscious decision not to be a liar, and then work every day to lie less. Well, we can't. You all like we have a perfect self. Like, no, it's not an excuse. Like, you shouldn't be a hypocrite. Like, it's not an excuse.
well, Jesus didn't have a good word to say for hypocrites, did he? So,
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, I think, I don't know whether it's people in church maybe feel a bit vulnerable because, you know, they're sometimes in their heads they're coming closer to God. I mean, God's everywhere, but you go to church and you're going through the whole sort of, you know, confession and whatever, and you're surrounded by people that you think are all better than you because they've been doing it longer, which isn't right, but whatever. But then, you know, if you sat there in a pew feeling a bit vulnerable, and then some guy with strange hair and tattoos and doesn't dress like a normal person sort of walks into the church, it's not really going to be a comfortable experience. So I guess people react against that. I think I've got more problem with the church authorities and the people up the front who
I think
go on about the devil's music and
I
all of this nonsense.
think by
And
the church buying into that worldly attitude, it's also attached an afterlife to that. So it doesn't, it doesn't matter. I mean, when you type, when you reduce like following Jesus only on attending a Sunday service, then the rest of your life doesn't matter, isn't it? You carry on being the crappy person you will always be because, like, you go to church on Sunday, like, and you tithe, and you know what I mean?
I think if you're only doing Christianity on a Sunday, you've probably not read the book.
But that's the thing. That's the problem. A lot of those people read the book, and like in my life, some of the worst people I have met within churches, they know the book inside out. So
Yeah,
knowing the
all
book
right.
is not.
Sorry, I'll rephrase it. They haven't understood the book.
Yeah, that's a long conversation. We can talk about it like forever.
Yeah.
But just like to get some Martin some comments here. Was like on the when we're talking about the mosh pit. Let's put it here. Ooh, we can do this. Is that the expression of emotion in the mosh pit is a search and groaning for something deeper, the searching of order from chaos, which is a creation narrative. That's a good question, this one.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a very deep question. Yeah. I don't know, the whole like screaming and growing is kinda, it's part of the, it's part of the game, isn't it? I don't know. It's also like you're releasing a lot of tension. So
I think it's expressing. I mean, you know, yes, loud music can be
but there was
seen, I guess,
an
as
article I read some time ago, uh, which was written from a vicar. She was writing for the Church Times actually, and she was kind of touching on the festival of the festival of the Fool. It was an old medieval festival where kind of for like a couple of days people were allowed to basically get like drunk their heads off and do all stupid things, and it kind of, she was kind of inviting Christians to reflect on that festival of fools, like stop taking yourself too seriously, like kind of, and like kind of the metal festivals, maybe it's like an opportunity to be stupid, basically, kind of get rid of all the being nice and all the conditioning you have from the world and your job and everything. Just go there, be among people that they accept you as your dress as you want to dress. I mean, to be honest, I was in where was that? Uh, Download, and as I was walking down the arena, and there was this couple that was walking down. The girl was like completely like naked from the waist up, and it's kind of like, it was like, okay, that's interesting, but at the same time it was kind of like she doesn't get assaulted.
yeah.
No one really bothers about how she's the way she's not dressed.
Yeah,
Basically.
yeah. I think
I mean, if you say it like down the high street, it'd be inappropriate. But for some reason, in that context, it's like it didn't matter.
I think that the mosh pit's probably the ultimate. It's the throwing off of the chains of society, isn't it? I mean, it is just, anything goes, and you're left with apparent chaos. But as you
I mean,
said,
obviously,
it's not chaos because actually everyone watches out for everyone else.
I mean, that's definitely, just to clarify by saying this, I'm not kind of saying that it's right or wrong. It's like something I observed. Like a lot of things happening in those festivals, like, they shouldn't be happening, like, like the excessive drinking and drug taking, for instance.
Yeah.
you know, kind of, we need to make clear that, I don't like it, but there is like a context, like the wider context of those festivals, that you can see a lot of like things that we can learn as Christians from that. There's always something to learn from everything. That's not my attitude. Uh, so just keep the baby. Don't throw the baby with the bathwater. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
And in any niche of society, it's dangerous to make generalizations because there's always exceptions that will prove you wrong. And there's some nasty stuff in all sorts of areas of society.
And then again, it's like, some like they quote the Bible and things, but then again, the Bible is not a strict rule book, isn't it? You should be doing this and exactly this. It's kind of like, this is what Paul, for instance, instructed on a certain context and a certain situation. It's kind of, something it always makes me grinch. It's like the verse where Paul says, like, those things shouldn't happen they don't happen even within the pagans.
Yeah.
They kind of take it like a stick to everything. It's like, do you realize he's talking for someone that you're sleeping with his stepmother?
Mm.
He talks about a very specific situation. You can't just like take it out of context and like throw it to everything. It's like, it's a very specific thing. Like, you can't run away with your dad's wife, basically. It's not right. Like, not like he says, like, not even like the idolaters do those things. Like, and
Yeah.
you kind of, you kind of like applaud him as well. It's like, are you nuts? Are you out of your mind? Like, what are you doing there?
Just saying, going back to the mosh pit, when you were describing the sort of the three groups all coming into the middle and sort of merging into one, I did get a sort of idea of it as a sort of vision of Trinity almost in that, and it's sort of, I don't know, three separate but all part of the same body.
Yeah.
But
sometimes, yeah. The other thing is sometimes.
But yeah, I mean, just random aside. But,
Yeah.
I'm not putting any spiritual significance on that at all. But it was a thought that came to mind. I mean, I've seen sort of on YouTube Walls of Death with 4 sides. You chose 3, and that's nice.
Yeah. I mean, it's 3 usually because it happens in front of the stage. So you have
okay, yeah.
because the stage. But I remember that video. It was a wall of death it was an Exodus gig. So the singer is up the stage, so the people are already like open. So there's like a large gap in the middle. It was like about 5 or 6 guys still in the middle. They were completely out of their heads, and like I felt really sorry about those guys. It was a very painful experience having all those. But anyway, so the singer is kind of like goes like, you guys on this side, you're gonna kill those guys on the other side, and it's like, everybody knows that it's not literal. He's not speaking literally. It's just like no one took out machetes and it's like gonna.
Yeah.
It's like you just just exaggerating something to make it like. I think it's like most like a shock effect than to the outsiders than the inside. It's like no one's like, oh, we're gonna kill you. Like,
But again, it's also if you're on the outside, you don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And therefore it looks terrifying.
But at the same time, kind of, I think it's a thing that keeps always in my mind. Like, with a lot of trends on TikTok and this kind of things, like, you never saw like a take a hammer and smash your people's face like by listening with Cannibal Corpse or like hammer smash face. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
you see trends of WOP challenges like so that's all right. That's fine. So something we do and we know it's only like a horror movie. It's not like a we're not gonna do it. So that what we do in the imagination is wrong, but what the pop culture actually does. So you have like things like Cardi B basically saying to young girls you should be sexually explicit
yeah.
when you walk down the road and
Oh,
dress, you know, uh, and
I mean,
basically like, and I mean, all girls should be able to dress however they want, but like that's not realistic. You know that you may get assaulted because there are sick people out there.
yeah.
So you're saying like to girls that that's all right, like yeah, that your worth, it's like how big your ass is, basically. Like, it's like no, I would get really angry with those stuff because like it's kind of it's actually like it's basically misogynistic. Basically, you kind of a grown-up woman say to young girls that the only thing that matters how good are you at sex.
Mm.
It's like
Yeah. Well,
not really.
I've never quite understood why sort of popular culture and pop music is so accepted when metal is so rejected, or
Hmm.
rock is so rejected. I mean, you look at the lyrics and some of the chart songs, and
Hmm.
or sort of deeper cuts of some of the chart artists. And
Yeah.
someone played me, I think it was Janet Jackson track. It was an album track, but this would be an album that is sold to pop fans who tend to be sort of young teens on the back of some very nice sort of love songy R&B singles.
Yeah.
And this track, it was basically um, her describing what she was going to do to her man or
Hmm.
whatever in terms which was sort of
Quite explicit. It was like a
it
listening
was
to porn, isn't it?
it was like at the very least a softcore sort of
Yeah.
film, but actually so some of the terminology she was using, um,
So that
and
so that's fine to be on the top 10, but like me listening to Cannibal Corpse,
yeah,
it's like their lyrics like sometimes are disgusting. Let's be honest, like some of the songs, like their lyrics are disgusting.
but,
But kind of
but they're
like,
also not they're not aiming at that
yeah,
audience.
you know that it's like it's like what the way it's been described even from the band itself, it's like the same way you go watch a horror film.
Yeah,
You listen to horror music. It's not like it gets out of you, a nerd to start killing people and dismembering people. It's like that's it's just music. It's just like
yeah.
it's just fun. Basically.
But then even chart songs. I mean, Blurred Lines or something. I think it was one of
So
the
I
songs.
remember the whole idea when with the PMRC,
Yeah,
where they said it was like Frank Zappa spoke to it, and Dee Snider. I mean, Dee Snider's speech is fantastic. He just he just pushed them to the wall. I mean, everyone can go on YouTube and watch. If you search Dee Snider PMRC, you'll find his speech is fantastic. I mean, the guy walks into the room with full gear, like he's walking into a gig, and he has like he reaches to this back pocket and take a paper that's been folded like 300 times, like a teenager, and like opens it. So he plays the part, so he plays them, and then he gives a speech. I was like. You can see the camera like all the the board members were like speechless. Because they thought they're gonna see an idiot that cannot put three words in a line, and like he kind of and he's a Christian as well.
mm,
I mean, someone may not, I mean, disagree with the way he expresses his faith, but like that's his problem. Like, for me, Christians, whoever says a Christian, I don't, you Uh, I can't go like in judge someone's faith and opinions of faith. As long there are some core values we have to stick about that. Yeah, and kinda, and that's another thing. Like kinda, a lot of metalheads it tend to be quite intellectual guys. Like with PhDs and like even like in bands they do like PhDs because they
Yeah.
kinda love science. Yeah, and I
Well,
think
something
I'm
that's
good.
always made me laugh, actually. I mean, you get all these bands and they're all big blokes with big hair and tattoos and piercings and all that, and it all comes across as very aggressive and all the rest of it. There's someone in that band writing poetry
Yeah,
because that's what lyrics are, and there's someone else writing music.
yeah. I mean, and some of them
They're
like
all just
kinda,
creative people, and
but some of them like I'm not gonna go like to bands for like with pay like surgical lyrics, which is like a different thing. But some songs, like some bands, like their lyrics are like kind of very deep lyrics, and I mean we saw some even like you go like songwriters like Slipknot, Metallica, Slayer. Like, I mean, there's a lot of like uh, some of their lyrics are quite deep. Some of them lyrics are quite provocative. They write them to provoke.
yeah,
But even with those songs, for me, it's like what they're trying to say. What for me is like to see what led them to say the things they say. So can let's look into that. Let
I
me
mean,
let me.
uh,
That was a previous comment. That was we long for the day of sexuality, gender, and the other label will absolutely no matter your inclusion of inclusion in church. Yeah, but it's just like
amen to that.
yeah. I mean, it was like it's what the in what John saw. So in the Revelation, his visions is that yeah, and also what Paul said,
Well,
like in
yeah, it's,
Christ, there's no Jew, there's
no,
no man, there's no male or female, there's
not
nothing.
no male
Everything
and
is one.
female, slave or free.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So why sexual orientation should
yeah.
matter?
So, I mean, we've talked a lot about how great the metal community is, but just as an example of
So give me a
welcome,
chance to scroll
welcome
up
that
through
you
the
can get in
comments.
the church. When I was in Wolverhampton the other weekend, well, I thought I'd find a church on a Sunday morning.
Hmm.
So I'm walking through Wolverhampton with sort of denim and a leather jacket and a t-shirt and all the rest of it, and probably looking very disreputable, trying to find a church. And I walked into this church, which turned out to be basically it was Redeemed Church of Christ. It was an African church.
Hmm.
So everyone in there dressed up in their Sunday best, really smart and whatever, all of African heritage. And I stood out a little bit, to say the least. So, but it was church, and they were worshipping God and following Jesus, so that was fine. So I sat there, sort of near the back, and then the pastor came out and said, "Have we got any first-time visitors?"
It came to you.
And you think, well, I'm really not going to be able to hide this, So I stuck my hand up, and
Let's baptize you. Like I'm already baptized.
but, but basically, he said, "Well, let's welcome." I mean, there's another guy as well who'd come in from the local community. But he said, let's welcome these people." And a dozen people came over to me and shook my hands and said hello.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I thought it was so refreshing. I mean, some of the churches I've been in,
I mean,
there'd have been a
that's
gap around me when you walk in, and
it is a bit of a risky tactic though, like because like there are people that it's not uncommon actually that people that
no,
want to be
it's not. But it's not the impression the church gives. I mean,
yeah
our church, we the congregation's made up of all sorts, and we've
yeah yeah.
got
I mean your
uh,
your congregation is like anything like diverse is gonna be the list of it to describe. Like,
uh,
it's like
uh,
anything from homeless guys to
yeah, we got addicts, we've got drunks, we've got people living on the streets. We've got nice, respectable middle class people, and we've got everyone in between, and they all get on. You know, you got young families, we got old people, we've got, and it works actually, because everyone understands that Jesus isn't exclusive; he accepts anyone. And you know, that's the model we're trying to push. And you know, we got gay people, we got one guy who sometimes turns up in a dress. We got we've got a cross section of society, and everyone is welcome, and no one is judged.
Dresses was what every male was wearing in Greece up to about 100 years ago. We're still going around in dresses. So when trousers will start getting start getting more popular in Greece, it was quite. So they were making jokes about men that wearing trousers.
Delightful conversation. I walked in our church. I mean, this guy who wears a dress also has his nails painted. He's got some false nails or whatever. And I walked in on a conversation where one of the younger ladies in the congregation was asking him where he got his nails done because they were so good. And it was just all natural, you know.
What would be more welcoming than that, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was just.
I mean, it can be more welcoming.
It was just normal.
I can't think of a more welcoming comment than this.
I mean, just looking at the comment you've put up there, I think yes, there is. I mean, if you're rejected by the church, where are you going to go? I mean, it's not helped. I guess the industry sells on a lot of quasi-satanic
just to clarify that
imagery.
In a lot of within the metal, I mean, the ones that they kind of profess Satanist, most of the times it's not a Satanism of like an existential Satanism, so they're not looking to sacrifice cats. It's more a philosophical. That's more of LaVey's Satanism. So it kind of, I said, like a more an intellectual Satanism, like which Satan is like the liberator, the one to free your mind. It's not right, you know. It's like, but it's like something that it's our fault. So if people find like liberation in Satan, it's like we did something wrong actually, like where Jesus actually suffered an excruciating death to liberate for all those things, and we end up sending people to Satan to feel what Jesus like.
I know that there are some bands that
but some of them that kind
exploit it. I mean, you know, I know some bands that are overtly actually Satanist in a religious sense, rather than just using imagery and singing songs about demons.
In most cases, that's like the most cases, like in the bigger part these days. So it's not so much. And it happens. I mean, the actual real deal happens primarily at the black metal scene in Norway. It's not so much like it's not so widely popular in the other parts of the world.
I don't know. I mean, not that they're metal; they're more in the sort of rock end of things. But Ghost, the one that comes to mind, and they actually play sort of catchy pop rock, and very earworms. But the songs are overtly giving glory to Satan, and
they write very good music. That's the fun thing. Like,
musically, they're lovely. I mean, you know. But they get airplay on national radio, and
because I kind of listen. I'm not really into them, but kind of listen to them out of curiosity. Like, because it's out there, so it's kind of interesting what they're playing. What kind of,
but lyrically, they're dire.
Yeah. So
and when you think that, you know, that they're singing songs like that and they're getting sort of mainstream airplay, but you know, I mean. Back in the 70s, everyone was fussing about Sabbath being a satanic band. The songs they sang that mentioned the devil were generally warning people how evil he was and how he'd deceive you. than ruin your life.
Yeah.
And then you
People
get the
actually they
situation.
weren't listening, is they? I don't think
Yeah,
people will actually listen to
they're
them.
not listening to the words, and
I don't think they ever
now you've
listen to
got
their music. I don't think they ever even listen to their music.
no.
I think they're just taking the word of someone, like the experts. Like I think in the States they have like a whole boards of this, like people that actually sit down and watching films and listening to music, and then say like, so they can protect the weak Christians from like because they are the strong ones. So we go, it's like and they're watching like horror films, and it's like the other day the latest Hellraiser came out. I was like ecstatic at last, a good Hellraiser. I was like so fascinated, like watching Hellraiser. Like my faith, it didn't shake in. It's like nothing to do with my faith. Like if my faith got shaken by a
What happened
film,
to he
it's
that is in us is stronger than he that's in the
yeah,
world.
it's just I like horror films. It's like that doesn't uh, it doesn't cause anything to my faith. Let's take a couple of comments because we kind of going through. So that's my subcultures tend to create and find acceptance, but what can happen is that those subcultures become socially accepted and then become part of the accepted norm, which is why explicit lyrics are now commonplace in mainstream pop culture. But then again, like metal is still like the pariah, isn't it?
Yeah,
The same issues arise in the gaming world. The explicitly violent nature of some games is widely accepted and justified by the mainstream. Ultimately, it comes down to power and money because that's what sells. I remember an old friend of mine. She used to say, I don't remember where she. It was like an anarchist philosopher that said it, but I don't remember who. This friend of mine always used to quote it about the punk scene,
hmm
and it's like, but what culture cannot kill makes it a trend.
yeah.
And then you see like the Kardashians going around with Cannibal Corpse T-shirts and Slayer T-shirts. It's like,
I was
but
like,
I think with that, kind of a lot of people get upset because it kind of makes sense because, and it was like at school we got laughed at from other students because we were going with our metal T-shirts,
Mhm.
and now you kind of I think it makes sense like some people are angry because kind of you kind of spitting in our pain because we know we in order to enjoy our music and the lifestyle we want. It's kind of, and it kind of makes sense. It kind of also comes. That's why I always say, like, I believe the metal attitude and lifestyle is the one that's closest to the gospel. And so, like, you see a lot of metalheads. They're kids that get bullied. They're lonely. They're suicidal. They have depression. So it's the riffraff of society,
mm,
and exactly the people that Jesus was always around, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
I mean, a lot of the songs we kind of looked into our podcast as well. Like they're talking about suicidal thoughts, about depression, about pain. This is things that they're all over the gospel. Like they're in the Old Testament. They're in the like, the laments of Jeremiah. It's like, it's like it can do some really good metal songs from that. Like the pain was all like and suffering and it's all over the everywhere in the Bible. And then Jesus was like, was the red light district talking with prostitutes. I mean that when I say this, people a lot of times feel uncomfortable. But like, how you think that he got the name Friends of Prostitutes?
mm,
Like, because he was like constantly in the red light district talking with prostitutes, and people
yeah.
like think that he goes there and gets favors.
Tax collectors and
Yeah.
fishermen and
No,
other
he called you
outcasts.
friend of someone if you have been seen
Yeah,
like all the time with them. So you're spending an enormous amount of time, like an off-screen time, around tax booths and you know
right.
whorehouses.
There's a lot to find about Jesus's attitude if you look at the sort of the story of the woman at the well, the
Hmm.
Samaritan woman, with with many husbands and living with someone who wasn't her husband and all the rest of it, who would have been as near to unclean as you could get in that society. She unmarried, unfaithful, Samaritan who the Jews hated anyway.
You
And
can't go
Jesus
worse than
just
that,
sort
is
of,
it?
and Jesus asked her for a drink of water.
Yeah.
And that just sort of broke down every barrier.
I mean, it was bad enough that he spoke to her.
Yeah.
Like, just
But to
speaking to
ask,
her was like scandalous enough.
yeah. I
But
mean,
he also
yeah,
like sat down and had a theological conversation, and also like accepted drinks from her.
yeah. He sat with her rather
Yeah,
than standing, all of that. The only reason she was at the well at midday was because she wasn't accepted by the other women who'd have gone at when it was cooler.
yeah.
And yet there he was, just
So at the same
having
time,
a
I have to
chat.
say, and this kind of tells us that how much the church has to learn from the metal community about
Mm.
everything except actually not exactly learn. It's like look at and go back to its roots. So the
Well, actually
metal
study what Jesus taught rather than.
metal has everything, not everything, like has a lot of the things that the church lost. Acceptance, like the sense of uh, belonging.
Sense of
You're like
humor.
a sense of humor. You're amongst complete strangers and you don't feel alone. I
Yeah.
mean, back in my days when I was still in Greece, I used to go to a lot of DIY gigs, and most of the time was just, I mean, if my girlfriend wasn't with me, then I would just go on my own.
Mm.
So and because like all of us, we weren't like millions of them, we were like a few hundreds of us. So we kind of ended up knowing each other, and so you meet the same person to the next gig and to the next gig. Like
Yeah.
5 gigs later, you already make a few friends.
Yeah.
And,
Most of the
not friends
gigs.
to share a lot of things, but it was a friend to share a drink with them, isn't it?
Mm. But yeah, most of the gigs I go to, we go on my own now because I mean, he used to go with a friend, but he had a stroke a few years ago.
Mm.
But yeah, never feel alone or isolated in a rock crowd.
Mm. So Jesus' interaction with the woman at the well said Jesus' part is that Jesus' part. It wasn't about just what he taught, but how he lived. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think he lived what he taught.
Mm.
I mean, actually.
I think he kind of just
Um,
couldn't help himself. It's just
mm.
he woke up in the morning and was like, "What am I gonna do today to upset the religious elite?" That was the
Hey, oh, it's the
daily. That was
Sabbath.
the
Let's go and
daily.
pick some grain. Yes.
That was the daily agenda. It's like, what I can do to upset the religious elite? Like, what can I do? Like, speak with
Mm.
prostitutes, eat with tax collectors. like, like,
Uh,
so Jesus went where people were afraid to go, and it was life changing for the woman of the world. Yeah, and so I think this is where not only to metal culture, but in general, the church needs to be open more to the subcultures
mm.
because subcultures is, you know, if you not say for instance, take steampunks, I can't just go and create like get Jesus to the steampunk community. I'm not a steampunk. It's not gonna
Mm.
work. It's gonna fail like miserably. I know Christians that they steampunks and they kind of be Jesus within that community. They're not preachy. They're just there. Just they do what they enjoy do. They just go to the steampunk festival and have fun.
Yeah.
They're not going and
But
give Bibles out. It's just like but they build up relationships.
it's not about being all preachy. It's being salt in the world, isn't it?
Mm.
It's um, I was talking about that actually at the weekend, and being salt of the earth. If you're using the metaphor in sort of bringing taste to food,
Mm.
if you have too much salt, it's just as unpalatable as if you
Yeah.
have no salt at all. What you want is just enough salt that you know it's there, but you
Yeah.
can't taste it. Um, it's
It's part. It's part
it's
of.
being
It's
real.
part of the recipe, isn't it?
Yeah, it's part of a recipe.
So
It's not.
as we are part of the
No,
recipe.
it's just natural. It's how things should be.
Yeah, but just it's a bit like when we pop into to a gig, we don't start out of the crowd.
Yeah.
And it should be. So we're there like part of. I mean, we can stand out of the crowd like with our tattoos and like our t-shirts could be like a bit more a Christian thing, but it's not like we kind of blend into a a motley crew of different colors and like the multicolored tunic, isn't it? Which kind of looks weird, but it kind of fits.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I always wear a cross when I go to gigs, and I've never been challenged on it. You know, it's and I would like to think, as I found in the church in Wolverhampton, I could walk in any church with a Motorhead T-shirt or whatever and be accepted. But
This morning we were talking about Lemmy and what a character he was. So, that's
not necessarily a good role model, I'd say. But
yeah,
you know.
but he could get away with anything, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
He was the only guy that could get away with anything. But at the same time, he was, yeah, exactly. He wasn't like the best role model, but at the same time, he was a very, I mean, people that they know him all said he was an honestly nice guy, and
I think
he was always
he had a strong set of principles.
he was always like pro anything, pro choice, pro like inclusive. He just he didn't really want to be a nuisance to people. Just
Yeah.
do what you want to do.
Just do what he wanted to do. Yeah.
And just don't cause harm to other people. Like,
Which is really like most people, isn't it? I mean,
but
yeah,
you know,
most people just want to get on with life. You know.
Lemmy's dad was actually a vicar.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. He ran away. He ran away with a younger girl. See, so yeah, they kind and they haven't seen him for years. So when he was older, they kind of had a reunion, something, but it was really cold. So it's kind of, I think, it makes sense. Like, Lemmy's anti-religious sentiment because, like, if your dad was what the God's representative on earth, and he just did you
Teenage rebellion carried on. Yeah.
for a younger girl, it's kind of like what kind of God is this? And then you got traumatized, and then you know. But I mean, his attitude towards religion kind of makes perfect sense. It's not something you wouldn't really expect it. Lemmy was Lemmy. Anyways,
Yeah.
we're not here to talk about Lemmy. Okay. Yeah, that's the last comment. It needs to be about
It's about
relationships.
It's
and
all
something
about
like
authenticity. Yeah.
kind of people are weary now as well, isn't it? Like, because I think in a lot of not a lot, like in many cases, Christians tend to create a relationship with people just to invite them to church, and when they're not interested about it, they walk away. So it's kind of the only relationship we've had with the outside of church world is just to invite them into church.
Yeah.
Which is it's a dishonest, it's dishonest, isn't it?
It depends what you do when they get there. I mean, with St John's, we keep the doors open, and as you said before, we get a variety of people in there. And some people just sort of put up with that, I guess, and that's fine. It goes on in the background. But some of us are actually engaging with people, and they're becoming friends, and they've become friends.
This is the context, though. It creates you walk into a church, you expect it to be invited to a church service, but like when you actually approaching your next door neighbor, for instance, and you create a relationship just for the sake of inviting to church.
No,
when they show that
that's not authentic, is it?
It's genuine, isn't it?
Yeah, if you're forming a relationship just to invite them to church, that's
you don't care for the person, basically.
At the end of the day, I work on the basis that there is nothing I can say that will persuade someone to follow Jesus.
Yeah.
I can invite them to explore, and then it's up to God and the Holy Spirit to inspire them and for them to make that choice.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I'll treat them like I treat any other person who's a Christian, non-Christian, or from any other background, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they're people. It should just be about relationships with people. And
Yeah. I think this one is our longest podcast ever. Is that we got over an hour, and I think we need to wrap it up because like
cool, yeah,
everyone started leaving. Yeah. So something I should have said at the beginning, but kinda we're working on some guests as well. So those with the guests will be primarily pre-recorded podcast. So in 2 weeks' time, it's gonna be me with Johannes. I don't remember his surname. He's actually the guy behind. He's the mastermind behind the Metal Bible. Basically.
here's one you prepared earlier.
It was just in my desk forever. So, by the way, if you want one and you are in the area, like in Medway down here in Kent, we can arrange to get you some one. If you happen to watch from somewhere else in the country, get in touch with them. They had a UK rep where they can arrange you to get some. We keep ours for our local community, so we can't just like post them anywhere in the country. That's that. So yeah, it was an interesting conversation we had, and
Hopefully, the
so,
conclusion is that yes, you can be a metalhead and a Christian, and that
yeah, I mean, like, yeah,
Jesus welcomes anyone who's searching and
yeah,
come and explore.
so, yeah, basically that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we'll see you in recording in 2 weeks' time, and with Roger will be. I don't think we're gonna be live next time, isn't it? You're away.
Yeah, I'm away
So the
this time
next,
next
yeah, we'll
month.
see. We'll see what we can do. We might have a recording, or we'll see. We
We'll work
haven't
something out.
decided yet. We have a month to see about it. So
How can they live without me for a month?
yeah, that's it. We need to see what we're gonna do. So anyway, that we love you and leave you, and thank you for everyone that's here. Like, live. I mean, if you watch the recording, just leave a comment, and if you want to uh, get in touch, just drop a message. So until next time, bye.
Bye. God bless.
I always want to say to finish this podcast with saying that Hail Hydra. Bye.
Bye.